Welcome to the Talon Outdoors Show. I'm Charlie.
I'm JD.
Yeah, I'm Fred.
I'm Captain Paul Tyre.
And I'm Grant.
Sorry, we're starting to show off a little bit of levity because we've been in here laughing for the past 5 minutes.
Yeah, you were laughing. I wasn't.
Yeah, well, we've so today on today's show, so we've got a couple things to cover today. This is probably going to want to be one of our more focused, serious shows that you'll hear. We've had our good time before we started recording. So we're going to be talking in depth as the show gets a little further on about the tragic events that just occurred this week with Charlie Kirk. But first, we want to cover something that's a little more cerebral because we'll get off on some tangents later in the show because we're all saddened and angry and upset and everything else about that, just like our listeners are. And we'll get to that in a minute. But we had something happen this week. I think it was Monday, wasn't it, Fred? Monday?
Yeah, it was Monday.
Monday? It was Monday.
Yeah.
We're going with Monday. That the First District Court of Appeals in Florida. Now, for you Alabama folks and Wiregrass folks, this will affect you because we're getting some of the rights that you have had for a while for open carry in Alabama and Georgia. Now exist in Florida. And that's one of the things y'all been concerned about for a while. When you come down to Florida, if you were open carrying, you were violating the law unless you were hunting, fishing, camping, or going to and from a gun range or one of those events. That's been a silly law since the 80s that was written.
It was Wednesday, by the way.
Wednesday. Okay, it was Wednesday.
Same day.
Yeah.
It was it was a silly law that was written when we enacted concealed carry back in the 80s. They took away the ability to carry openly. Anyway, long story short, we hadn't been able to carry openly in some time. You can call what we got recently constitutional carry when you could carry permitless, but it was not. And so we still haven't rewritten the statutes, but the first DCA, which is one of the district courts, and it is Pensacola-Escambia County area, and part of North Florida, correct, Fred?
Well, that's where the original event took place. The
Right.
decision was made here in Tallahassee at the first, because that's our
I thought
district.
the first was.
That's here.
Is it here?
It is
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, we are in the First District Court of Appeal.
Okay.
So.
Well, the first DCA said that they overturned that law, said it's unconstitutional, and Fred's going to explain it. Long story short, y'all now have the right in Florida to carry openly. You have the right. It comes with responsibilities. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Still a law on the books.
It is still a law on the books, and as far as I know, the mandate has not come down, so this is not final until the mandate is issued. So don't go strapping on a gun and walking around
Well,
Walmart.
they already are because the Sheriff's Association sent out a memorandum to all of the 67 county sheriffs and said, tell your deputies, do not arrest anybody
I got you.
for open carry and do not enforce this law anymore. However, somebody could.
That's correct.
And
So
you might have legal fees tied
yeah,
up
so
in it.
I'm not advising anybody to open carry yet. So that's not my legal advice. The sheriff can say I'm not going to enforce the law, but I can't tell you as a matter of law that the law is still not valid because the mandate is not issued.
Mm-hmm.
So now, good on the sheriff if he's not going to enforce it. I agree with him 100%, and I agree with this opinion 100%. I'm proud of our District Court of Appeal, the way they reached the decision. There is no way that our Florida Supreme Court would overturn this.
Nor would the
U.S.
right
Supreme
now
Court.
the
Attorney General.
Attorney General said he's not going to appeal it, and the governor supported it.
Yeah, and I think he would be making an unethical argument if he did appeal it based on the way this thing is written.
Well, he's already said he supports it, so it's done except for the waiting.
So anybody who would follow the law the Attorney General should take that position. So I'll tell you how this started. This was 4th of July, 2022. There's a guy named Stanley Victor McDaniels, and he was running for office. And so he's standing in the corner of a major intersection in Pensacola. In his left hand, he's holding a copy of the Constitution. In his right hand, he is waving at people that are driving by. And he's got a in clothing holster, but the butt of the gun is sticking out. So he is openly carrying under Florida's ban on open carry. He's committing a second-degree misdemeanor at the time. And so the cops show up, and he's very cooperative with the cops, and he tells them at the time he wants to take his case to the Supreme Court. And that's in the opinion. And so they take his gun away from him, give him his holster back, and then they go get a warrant, and he turns himself in. He goes to trial. The Honorable Kara A. Smith, who is a female judge, county judge, finds him guilty. He gets probation and some community service. They stay the sentence, and the case goes, now county court cases go straight. They used to go to the circuit court. They now go straight to the First District Court of Appeal, and they take it up. And so here we are in 2025. Tells you how long it takes to get a case through an appellate court. And they hand down this ruling. This ruling is probably one of the most solidly written opinions I've ever seen come out of the first ECA. It tracks how we got here. And so, and I think it's worthwhile to the listeners to understand that. So, about a decade ago, we got the Heller decision. That is a landmark decision from the United States Supreme Court, and it says, no, it's not a militia, it's individuals. The Second Amendment is a right, just like all the other Bill of Rights, that protects individuals from government. It extends a God-given right, not law-given, as Tim Kaine would say, but a God-given right that is given to us and interpreted through our laws. But we have this right, and they say, yeah, you have a individual right to keep and bear arms. So, and I use that word bear in quotations because it's going to become important in just a minute. So Heller says, all right, the right extends to individuals. Then you get the McDonald case. This is the next case in the litany of Second Amendment cases as it relates to firearms. And this might be the most dysfunctional ruling I think the Supreme Court ever rendered. It was a plurality opinion, and those are weird. That's when you have, and I think this was when Ketanji had worked on this case, and so she couldn't be in, so you had 8 judges all right, making a decision. That's never a good thing. 4 of the judges dissented, and 4 of the judges wrote the majority or the plurality opinion. One of the judges in the 4 dissenting was Thomas, and he said, I'm dissenting, but I agree with the result. So that made it a plurality opinion. What this did was it extended the federal individual right to the states and local governments. So not only are you protected by the federal government, but the states, that extends to the states through the 14th Amendment according to the plurality. Thomas thought it ought to be extended with the Privileges and Immunities Clause, but he agreed that it should be extended. But they didn't really say how it's extended. And they left it to the courts to come up with this 2-pronged test that nobody really understood. And as a result of that resulted in another case from the Florida Supreme Court that took up on the ban, because it was challenged before. And it went to the Florida Supreme Court in a case called Norman, and the Norman decision upheld the ban on open carry. So we lost in the Florida Supreme Court. But then the opinion, the Bruin opinion, and I love the Bruin opinion because what it does is it takes the 2 theories of conservative constitutional theory, and we're going to call them the textual theory, and that's what I am. Mm-hmm. And the textual theory would be, okay, what does it say in the Constitution? And if it's covered in the Constitution, that's it.
We're done.
We're done. You look at the text of the Constitution. You don't look at what the founders meant when they wrote it. And I don't like that. That's called originalist theory. And you can be a conservative and have the originalist theory, and I'm going to tell you, okay, you're right, but I'm smarter than you are. Because when you look at the originalist theory, you're trying to go back and ascertain what the founding fathers meant when they wrote it, and you weren't there. You don't know what they meant. Look at the text, not what you think they meant. So what this decision did was it took the originalist justices and the textual justices, and it combined them. And it's fascinating to read what they wrote.
All right.
And I'm looking
we're going to hold you off right there because we've got about 10 seconds, but this is absolutely interesting, and we want to pick right back up here in just a minute. Thank you, Fred.
All right, we're picking up where we left off. If you missed the first part, go back and listen to the streaming thing, because this is part of a longer conversation. Fred, go ahead.
Okay, so what happens next is you get the Bruin decision. This is the gold standard of the Supreme Court. This finally settles what the Second Amendment, what does it cover? All right, and it's pretty simple. And what they did was they combined the textualist theory of constitutional, whatever word I'm looking for, of interpretation, to the originalists. They combined the two, and they came up with a test. Now, every time Supreme Court rules, there's always a test. So you go back to your basic constitutional law class. If you're going to law school right now, that's the first thing you need to know is every Supreme Court opinion, there's a test. And usually it's like 2 or 3 pronged test, but this is a pretty simple test. And it is called the Text, History, and Tradition test. And it's actually 2 parts to it. So the history and tradition is combined. So the first thing you do when you look at a law to determine, regarding guns, to determine whether it's constitutional, you say, okay, is it covered by the text of the Constitution? So what do we have here? We have a ban on open carry of firearms. Well, is that in the text of the Constitution? Yeah, it is.
You can have one.
Well, remember I said that word bear?
Bear. You can carry one
bear.
with you.
All right, bear means wear, carry, hold. All right, if you're bearing something, you are showing it.
Yeah.
All right, you have it on your person. So you get to keep arms. That means you don't have to turn them into the armory like they do in Canada. So you can keep them, and you can bear them. And so they said, all right, well, that's definitely in the text of the Constitution. Now let's look at the history and tradition of how that was regulated. And it's actually summed up at the very end of the opinion. And I'm just going to tell you what the text is. And we're talking about, so we got it, it's in the text of the Second Amendment. Let's look at the history. Well, here's the history. The historical record makes clear that open carry was regarded as the lawful and preferred mode of bearing arms, while concealed carry was viewed as dangerous to public safety and ineffective for self-defense. No historical tradition supports Florida's open carry ban. To the contrary, history confirms that the right to bear arms in public necessarily includes the right to do so openly. That's how they interpreted it under the Bruin decision, and it's that simple.
Yep.
It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. A lot of big words in here. The opposition tried to argue laws from 1328 and all kind of other nutty stuff. But when you look at it in the context of Florida law, and they mention this in the opinion, this has only been illegal since 1987. You and I all, when we were growing up, had gun racks in the back of our pickup trucks where we had a rifle and a shotgun on full display as we drove to school.
Yes.
All right.
And it sat there in the parking lot at school all day, and nobody ever once thought about going and getting their gun.
We were bearing arms openly.
Yep.
That all went away. That's why you don't see gun racks in back trucks anymore, because in 1987, that was essentially outlawed. So unless you were going to the hunting camp, you couldn't have your gun in it, or to the camping, fishing, whatever you're doing. One of the limited exceptions. But now we will be able to put those guns in the back of our truck. Now, whether that's a good idea, that's a different question. In light of theft in a lot of the places that we have in the crime rate going up. But we'll be able to have the freedom to do that. And that's what's important about this decision. It gives us our freedom back.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, especially when you got the other side of the argument doing everything they can to take every gun we own away from us, because that is their end goal, and don't ever think that it's not.
Well, I can tell you in light of the other events of this week, I am going to proudly display a couple of guns in the back of my pickup truck. So,
well, that's the way your window gets broken and it gets stolen.
It might be.
Back in the day,
I might get
People
some
didn't do that.
bulletproof.
well, maybe
windows,
what you do if you're going to do that is you run your cable through the guns and bolt it down in there, and that way if they break your window and grab the gun, they can't steal the thing.
Well, then that's what I'm going to do. Doggone it. So,
That would also give a higher level of securing them. So I was reading through. I read that whole thing too, and it's a little numbing if you really dig in there, but it makes sense. They even go into talking about in the history of carrying when people who carried concealed were considered cowards. And to be manly, you had to carry openly. I mean, there's things back in the early...
There's country music songs that talk about carried his gun for all the honest world to see, and Poncho and Lefty.
Poncho and Lefty, Willie Nelson and
Waylon or Merle Haggard. Sorry, Merle Haggard.
So I'm not saying that's the case, because it's obviously not. We carry concealed for tactical surprise and to keep people from committing gun grabs and for being the guy in the room that can respond and they didn't know you had a gun. I always worry. I mean, I think about this. So I'm still a law enforcement officer. I can carry a gun openly anytime I want to. Generally clip a badge on there, but I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But the reason I don't routinely carry openly is because I'm concerned when I'm pumping gas and somebody walks up behind me, or if I'm standing in line at the checkout counter and somebody's standing there behind me and they are one movement away from being armed and me being unarmed. It's just that easy to have a gun taken away from you if you don't have some sort of secure holster. And listen, I'm trained, JD. How many times have we trained to do weapon retention and react to that type of gun grab and all that stuff? But it's still, for the average citizen out there that now can carry openly after this thing gets finalized. I'm not an attorney, so I don't care. I know nobody's going to arrest you unless they're just a complete idiot and want to get sued for violating your constitutional rights. But that doesn't save you the attorney's fees in the meantime until this thing is
wait till the mandate comes down.
Right. So and the legislature's going to probably go back, I would imagine, and tweak the law. They're going to have to rewrite some stuff, and they may want to change it, but the governor's not going to sign anything he doesn't agree with. So they'll make it right in the long run. So when I tell people, go, well, why do you say it's a bad idea to carry openly? I'm not saying it's always a bad idea. I just think the method of carry, and if you don't have if you're not trained in weapon retention, if you just carry a easy to grab gun because you can, there are videos of people having guns taken away from them.
Oh yeah, I go and spending a lot of time in Georgia and Alabama. I see it a lot more because you don't see it here, but I see it when I'm out of state. People carrying open-top holsters with no retention device and absolutely not paying attention to their surroundings, and I'm standing arm's reach away from them, and there's their gun, and I promise you I could have it in my hand before they could even react.
And if you were mentally ill and you let the intrusive thought take over.
If I was a bad guy,
yeah,
you have just given them a gun.
And you think they won't do it. I mean, leave your car unlocked with your gun sitting in the seat and walk in the store? No, because somebody will reach in there and grab it. Are you going to care? Just because it's on your person, you are providing it to someone to do a quick grab. Now, if you're carrying it on appendix carry up on the front, and you can pull that off, maybe less so. But if you carry, like I like to carry back, at 5 o'clock above my wallet on my side, and I bend over in a store, or I'm not, I get the heebie-jeebies when somebody walks up behind me and I've got my, now what this means for me is, when I leave the house in the morning, I stick my gun in my waistband. I got inside the waistband holster. I'm wearing it right now, openly in the studio, because we're where we are. I stick it in my waistband, and I go get in my truck or my car, and I go to work, and I may have to stop and get gas. When I stop at the gas station or I run in the gas, I untuck my shirt and I pull it over my gun, and I don't want people to look at it and call the law because some guy's open carrying it at the gas station, even though I'm still in transit to and from a gun range, blah, 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 which that law's never made any sense to me, and it's always been hard to interpret. I mean, what do you consider, on the way to and from? So it's a moot point now, but now I don't have to worry about covering that up. So if I want to get out and wash my windshield and walk around in front of my truck, then I can expose my gun, and I don't have to worry about somebody looking at me crossways. I walked in a place yesterday to get something, and I went in last night to pick up some Chinese food on the way home. And yes,
you need a gun for that.
And yes, I even ordered it the wrong way, and I got the accent on the phone like I always do. And I walked in, and I'm going, crap, I forgot to untuck my shirt. Oh, I can, whatever. Okay, cool. And But I still felt a little subconscious because when the little fella got up behind the well, he was bigger than you, Fred, but the little fella got up behind the counter and walked up to wait on me. I kind of turned to where it was away from me so he wouldn't feel intimidated, because I promise you he doesn't know about this DCA opinion. And that's going to be the big kicker in the near future, is people don't know. I mean, it's big news, but
it is big news.
And I was talking to my sheriff the other day after this, and I said, and my wife runs dispatch, and we've had this conversation about, hey, the phone's going to be ringing off the hook because people don't know.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that are going to run out and start walking down the sidewalk with an AR-15 now because they can. And there's going to be a shock factor.
Well, how long will it take for the mandate to come down where it's actually, how long does that usually take?
Usually about 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
If they don't file for a rehearing, which they're not going to do, then 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? How does it come out and say, well, now there's
It
a mandate?
says mandate. It got big.
Thou shalt not enforce.
Thou shalt not
enforce this law anymore.
And
okay.
And then it'll be published in the Southern Reporter, and it'll come out in the Florida Law Weekly.
You subscribe to those, JD?
Mm-mm.
I don't subscribe to those.
I suspect somebody will come out here and want to interview one of us so they can put it on the news. That'd just be my guess.
They've already interviewed Charlie. He was in the newspaper this morning.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. I'll show you when we on the break. They quoted you.
What?
Yeah, you're in the news, man.
No, I'm
You're
not.
famous.
No, I'm not. I hadn't talked to anybody.
I'm going to tell them about that Chinese food thing.
Oh, yeah.
Did the guy ask you to borrow the gun for some cats? Or?
Hush, Fred. That ain't right. This is a serious show this week. We'll be right back. And we're back. So, picking up on where we left off, we were discussing the open carry and the idea of open carry. And I mean, open carry's been legal in Georgia and Alabama, and now it's going to be. You're trying to get me to read something in the middle of.
You can't do that to Charlie because he can't do. Cannot do both. Yeah.
Yeah. Here is this. Is this in the Tallahassee Democrat?
That's Democrats. Got you. I told you. You were
The decision is likely to stand. This is in a Democrat article. Now, it's this: if open carry, when I start wearing my gun, the decision is likely to stand if the state attorney general doesn't appeal, according to Talon Range CEO Charlie Strickland. Let this play out a little longer, and in a few months we will see if the AG wants to take it to the Supreme Court in Florida. Strickland posted on Facebook.
Right. There you go.
And then AG Jim Utmeyer called the decision to win. So that seems unlikely.
Somebody's
stalking my Facebook.
Yep, they got
I told you you were famous.
I may have commented on one of their posts. I don't know. I didn't know you could get in the news that way.
Yeah. It's
Well, when you're a public figure like I am.
It happened to me a couple of weeks ago about the clerk. They took a Facebook post off and find it in the Democrat. And I'm like, what are they?
They board for news. You'd think, anyway. But yeah, so Georgia and Alabama, open carry, Georgia and Alabama has been going on for it's been.
I was going to say,
the law of the land.
I'd be
for
shocked if there was ever a ban on open carry in Georgia since James Oglethorpe. There probably hadn't been one since it was a colony.
Yeah, and you don't hear about a lot of what we would call a grab or a gun grab or somebody taking a gun away from somebody. It is not as common as I would even think that it would be.
Yeah.
Because I see it from the eyes of a law enforcement officer, and when we in uniform, law enforcement officers, since I started my career in 1988, we're wearing level 3 security holsters that take 2 snaps and a rock back and this whole combination to even get the gun out of the holster, and that's been law enforcement standard for a long time now.
You just subscribed to 070 level 3.
Yes, I did.
Safari Land.
I did.
I had a client that actually had a gun stolen last week.
Stolen off of their person?
Off of their person. Guy been watching her, saw her put it in her
bag or whatever.
Bag, whatever, and stole the gun. The guy had been doing that, and they finally caught him.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There have been instances that happen, but the sad thing that I see is people will take it and take a firearm and stick it in the pocket of their cargo pants and just let the grip hang out, or some floppy holster that's just barely holding on to the gun, and they're walking around in the store and all this other stuff, and it's it's irresponsible.
Now, if you buy a Talon holster,
Yeah. So,
Well,
we do have outside the waistband holsters with a single snap on there, and I'm not even real super comfortable with that as being it's more secure than one that doesn't have a snap or a strap that goes over the back of it to hold it in there. It's more secure. It's still not a level 2 or level 3 duty holster.
Yeah, it's there when you're rolling around on the ground in a fight as a law enforcement officer, you want the highest level of retention that you can get because you know how to operate that holster.
And there's a gun involved in every encounter that you have with a citizen. There is always a gun there. So you have to, as a cop, you have to think there's always a gun. It's always a gunfight, even if it's a physical altercation. It's always a gunfight because there's a gun there.
And the number of incidents you're going to get reported to law enforcement where you are openly carrying and you get in an argument with somebody, you better not. Get in your car and leave. Don't make if you're openly carrying and you've got a gun, they're going to say you threatened them with a firearm, and it's going to be hard to say you didn't when you're standing there with one visibly available. Yeah. And so it's going to complicate the process. If you're going to openly carry, you need to be the ultimate gentleman as it comes to these things. Take the high road.
Or lady,
take the high road and recognize that you present a deadly threat to them if you stand your ground and argue back, because now they're going to interpret it that way. Now, whether or not you get arrested or not is a different story. Just be careful, and choose your words and meter your anger level a little bit, and just take a deep breath and move on. We'll be right back. So we're coming back from the sorry, Tallahassee folks, y'all don't get the bottom of an hour segment, but we were talking about some open carry issues, and one of the things that came up was, and before we move on, and since we've got an attorney here, I want to talk a little bit about, so historically, if you carried your firearm concealed in Florida, if you inadvertently displayed it not in an angry or threatening manner, so you didn't pull up your shirt tail and you're threatening somebody and show the gun, so that was a violation of the law. Now, if you're going to open carry, and you can still conceal carry, all that stuff, you can still do that with or without a permit, but now you're going to open carry, and so you get in an argument with someone.
Yeah.
And you say,
I'm going to shoot you.
And you have the gun visible.
Correct.
Now, what is that, Fred?
Probably aggravated assault with a firearm.
Which is a felony.
And carries a min-man, yeah.
But if I'm standing there, I'm talking about don't make me hurt you or something like that. Now that's
gray area.
Gray area.
Okay, so
you have the apparent ability to carry out the threat for
sure.
Sure.
There's one case, I had the exact issue come up not too long ago. The question was, when does it become aggravated assault? So the different levels. If I'm pointing my gun at you, saying I'm going to shoot you, aggravated assault firearm. That's no question about that. But what if I have the gun and I'm holding it at ready, ready position,
pointed down at the ground?
Is that aggravated? Well, gray area.
It's in your hand, readily available for use. Would a reasonable person been in fear?
What if it's not loaded?
I don't know that.
That's a gray area question. Because we're talking about the person feels like he's being assaulted. You got a firearm.
It's reasonable for them to be placed in fear. They
could legally shoot you.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't it be aggravated assault?
Probably would be in my book.
All right. So that's
a decision for a trial.
Yeah, it is. It's a decision for trial. So if you're going to openly carry, and you get in an argument with somebody, like Charlie was saying in the best thing is that I'm sorry, you come see me tomorrow if you want to argue. It's not argument day, and get in your car and drive away.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for some people. There's going to be people
and
facing criminal charges.
Yeah, that's the hard thing for anybody to do, no matter whether you think you're right or wrong. It's hard to walk away from something.
Oh, it's been tough as a cop in a uniform with all the training we've had to just bite your tongue sometimes and go, you know what, I'm going to lose this argument because I have to. I got to leave. And a lot of people don't have that type of training, de-escalation training, or their experience or the minds are going to have a hard time doing it. And now that you've got a gun visible, it aggravates that stuff.
So, as with anything, all right, we got our freedom back. That's great.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to lose it.
You don't want to lose your freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility.
Absolutely.
And there are consequences. I mean, I have the right to go out and say the most vulgar and racist things and stand in my parking lot and yell at people on the street. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, you really need to stop.
You got to be prepared to deal with the consequences thereof.
There are consequences to that.
Which is a big problem in the world today because people get on the internet and say things and say stupid things, and there's never a consequence because a lot of time they're an anonymous under a handle
Correct.
on the internet and they type things.
But those people want to hold people on the right responsible for anything we say, and that's one of the great divisions in our country today, and this is a perfect segue into what we wanted to talk about, and that is the murder, the slaughter, the assassination of one of the most religious, everything that is on our side of the equation, someone who is one of the most intelligent people that I've ever seen, someone who has a huge following and will continue to have an even bigger following, someone who children's age follow.
It has been a rough week at the Johnson house, I tell you.
It was Conrad household's been the same thing.
Yeah.
It is just
Tater's birthday was Thursday, and we had her birthday party Wednesday night so she could go to soccer practice Thursday night, and so her birthday celebration was with the family was Wednesday night, and it's for she's turning 16 years old, and she was a child that absolutely at least once a week would share a Charlie Kirk reel.
I mean, guy was just a good person.
My niece Emma,
to me,
the same thing. I didn't realize.
Look at this, and she just was such a fan, and he's such a good Christian, and she's really devout. She's a really devout young lady, and it just, man, you talk about breaking Daddy's heart. I have been just fighting off tears all week.
My son crossed paths with him in his work as the vice president of the Citadel Republican Club, which was one of the biggest clubs in Southeast, and a lot of candidates and people like that came through that club, and he got to meet him, and I think he met him at CPAC. And he's not pleased about it. All of my kids are just angry about it. I mean, anybody that age.
16, 15, 14 to 25.
He made Christianity and conservative cool.
Yeah. And with lucid arguments and debate, being open and polite, civil, sitting there, giving everyone the opportunity to come in and
defend your position.
Try to defend, and very few people were able to successfully do any of that because he was such a smart guy.
He didn't attack them personally. It's kind of like my rule with cops on the stand. I'm going to go after them. And I'm going to attack your investigation. I am never going to attack you personally. Unless you lie, but he didn't do that, and
they still whacked him. Right, that's the thing. He was the most mainstream, normal guy. He was not a guy with these super edgy online takes or whatever. He was mainstream, and everyone knew him. Yeah, and he's a proxy for all of us. Yeah. If they're willing to do it to the guy with the biggest heart,
they'll do it to any of us.
They martyred him.
Yes,
and now they've galvanized all of us. Those of us that listened and said, that's a cool argument he's making. That really makes a lot of sense. Look at him. What was he, 31 years old? And in those 31 years, because he started as a teenager with this, was it Turn Point USA was his organization? And he started as a teenager. And everybody's looking at him. You see this smart alecky kid starting to do this stuff, and now you see this guy and he came into his own, and he talked about being a good father and being a good man and being a good Christian, and what the role of a father should be in a family, and all these different things, and he lived that example. There was no drama with him other than the fact that he wanted to go into the bastions of liberalism and speak and give them an opportunity to debate with him and talk about it, and they slaughtered him one of them slaughtered him, and
In
they
front of
applauded
his
it.
children.
And they applauded it, and they reveled in it. And the thing is, and then they turn around and go, okay, well, and then they want to use the there was a legislator up in Michigan
January
or
6th.
somewhere. Or they want to talk about, well, y'all assassinated some state legislator nobody knew except right around there, and we didn't applaud that. We didn't revel in what had
Oh, you're
happened.
talking about the
I
one
don't
up there in like Minnesota or
Yeah, I
Wisconsin?
don't even-
well, that was
That's still kind of up for debate. We don't exactly know who that
You
person
talking about
was.
Gabby Giffords? or-
No, Hortman was
Oh,
her
okay.
name.
Yeah, I mean, they can, oh, well, y'all did that. What do you mean y'all did that? I mean, we don't know what that was, and we can't say that not everyone on the left applauds this. But
Right,
but
that's
there's
right.
enough of them out there jumping up and down and saying nasty stuff. Now, nobody on my Facebook profile did, because I have done a really good job of fine-tuning who my echo chamber is to where I don't have to listen to that
Amen.
crap.
Amen.
And I so far I haven't had to kick anybody out, although I know that there's some people on the other side of this, but they metered their comments and stuff,
Well,
and they didn't applaud.
this-
Well, I do have those.
this-
I don't filter them out. I'll let anybody join mine. And I
This-
tell you, I am raging at this point. And you look at Charlie Kirk and you compare him to somebody on the left like David Hogg. I mean, all right, has David Hogg inspired anybody? Has he gone and said, let me sit down with a conservative and share and have a civil debate? No. He's called us every kind of name in the book.
It's this,
and-
they rule
and can present zero logical argument
To back it up.
to back anything up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg.
Well,
couldn't do
my-
it. She-
That's
My-
another idiot out there.
my thing, the reason I feel like the reason he was such a threat is because
He was successful.
he was successful at his goal, and there is no telling how many young people
Oh, that he converted.
converted.
That's
yes,
right, that's
that
the threat
brought to
right there.
Jesus.
And yes.
No telling.
And
Possibly
demons don't like that.
Possibly millions. And the bad guys, the evil in this world, can't abide with that.
They cannot stand when somebody comes to Christ and they're cool.
But
And because they bring other people to Christ. And it is cool. I mean, look,
That's right.
he had the faith and he lived it, and he showed what can happen if you have faith and how it makes life so much more pleasant
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
when you have that, and they couldn't stand it. They killed him for that.
Yep. Absolutely right, man. Horrible, horrible. We'll be right back.
And we're back. So, anyway, before we get to fishing, let's finish up this conversation.
No, I you know, the thing that got me back to the gun stuff is some of the like Ocasio-Cortez and some of the, we got to have common sense gun laws. Okay, what is your common sense gun law that's going to stop somebody from having a hunting rifle?
Yeah. What about the idiot that said?
On Facebook, that's not a hunting rifle. That is a 308 bolt action. That's not. Nobody hunts with that. Sorry, I beg to
exactly
differ.
what I
That's
hunt with.
exactly what I hunt with.
I almost want you to say, who is this person? We need to roast.
He's one of my Facebook friends.
You don't
Or was until probably today. Come on now. I mean, okay.
That might have been. You sure that wasn't satirical on his part saying that? You sure that wasn't satire, Charlie? Because that is the ultimate. So, my understanding of the gun that was used in the thing was a Mauser, a Mauser rifle that had been sporterized and probably rebarreled, because the Mausers from World War II Mausers were all 8mm German Mausers, but since 1940, 1941. Or 45, when the war was over, GIs brought those things back. The former German military issue 5-shot bolt-action Mauser, soldiers brought those home by the millions, and most of them don't remain in their original configuration. They have all the wood stripped off of them, and they get them rebarreled. It has been the primary gun to have customized or make custom guns off of to hunt with. That's what was done with most of them. They were called
seen a picture of
sporterizing.
this one, or
I saw a picture of it. I've seen, but there's so much crap floating around on the
You don't
internet
know
that I don't know if it's a real picture or not.
If it was that one, I can tell you that whoever set it up probably got some scope eye somewhere along the line, because they've got that
Scope
scope
eye relief
all the
way
way
too
back. The
far
eye
back.
relief on that thing's terrible.
what?
But
How
that
they
doesn't
put the
mean it
scope too
wouldn't
far
shoot.
back, or
Yeah, you
you
set
look
too
at
far
that
back
thing.
where you're
Yeah.
sitting way off
Yeah.
or sitting real up close to it. So when it kicks and fires, you're gonna get
Yeah.
you get to join the club of the crescent moon. You know, you get that cut, you get that cut right between the eye there. You've done that, right, Fred?
When I was a youngin', that happened.
Yeah, that's the first time you shoot a deer rifle.
Yeah.
You're trying to get up and it hits you right between the eyes, and you go, "Oh!" I've seen people just absolutely have their eyes, their forehead opened up. But yeah, I mean, if that's not like I said before, the goal of the left is for American citizens to be totally disarmed, and totally dependent on the government.
Sure.
Yeah, there was a senator the other day that said, "Our rights are your rights are from
Tim Kaine.
Yeah, from the government."
That was almost your vice president.
Like, what?
Yeah, no,
Said that we didn't get our rights didn't come from God; they came from laws. Tried to say that Iran believes that rights are given by the Creator. He's off his rocker.
It's just but they want to make the gun control argument every time there's a crisis or every time anything happens with a gun. We got to do something about these guns. It's never about we got to do something about the bad people, the people that are doing the bad things.
But in the meantime, you've got an immigrant slaughtered on a train or a bus with a knife, and in Cascade Park, Tallahassee, Florida, you got people stabbed two people
stabbed
and jumped in a pond and drowned. So good for you.
Yeah,
I mean, at least that had to be somebody who was mentally ill.
He was mentally ill. He had been reported missing earlier in the day. He was
agitated
autistic and agitated.
Mm-hmm.
There are the violent mentally ill people, coupled with just the mentally ill people who then become violent. And there's a lot of mental illness in this world, and that's okay. I mean, these people need help. They need medication. They need help. They need support. However, violent mentally ill people who are just that, they need to be in institutions.
Man, I say this. I've said this on the show before. I'll say it again. Growing up in Chattahoochee, Florida, and I want to consider myself somewhat of an expert, if you will.
In crazy?
In crazy. Because when I was a kid, my parents worked there, my grandparents worked there. Everybody's life revolved around mental illness because there's still a giant hospital over there with hundreds of big buildings with hundreds of beds and with probably thousands of beds. Because when I was a kid, there was 3,000 patients in the hospital, give or take.
3,000 patient people?
Yeah, at any given time,
then they got
the census was and that's not even counting the real bad ones in the forensic unit. I'm just talking about the ones that could actually get out and walk around that were not so dangerous, but they were mentally ill to the point where they couldn't take care of themselves, or they had done something to lose their freedom. Right? Okay, whether they're violent or not, it's probably some of them were prone to that. But my point is, when I was a kid growing up, there's 3,000 people housed over there in that big campus, that big hospital over there, and now, last time I heard a census count over there, it was like 400.
Really?
Yeah. And those are the people that are.
And those are forensics that have literally done something so horrible that I ain't even going to say it on the radio. I know what some of them are up there for, and it's unbelievable.
Some of them are waiting for.
Some of them are waiting for trials. They're there temporarily being assessed or whatever, and then you have an Alzheimer's unit for people up there that have Alzheimer's that can't take care of themselves. So that's all that is in there. So
the rest of those people that were in there are now roaming our streets.
They live under the overpass and herd dogs. Yes.
And here's the thing: is I have security officers in Tallahassee, Florida, right now running off homeless people and transients from private properties. That's one of the things we do. Is go to businesses and strip malls and apartment complexes, and we spend most of our time running off transients and homeless people because the police are so overwhelmed with everything going on.
And how many of those, Charlie, what percentage would you say of those people that are what we term the homeless, how many of them would you say are mentally ill in some capacity or another?
The vast majority.
Virtually 100%. You might have the occasional person that's just down on their luck and needs a little bit of help. Those people don't stay on the street.
Well, the biggest
because
issue,
help is out there.
The biggest issue we have is when we go out and we're getting our friend. We all have friends in law enforcement. It's trying to get some street guy, police officer, to arrest someone because and the argument I get a lot of times is, well, we told him not to come back to the property, but we're really not sure he understood the warning. Okay, well then Baker Act him. Well, he's not crazy enough to Baker Act. Well then arrest him because he's either crazy enough to put in in there because he's can cause harm to himself or others, or he's
Can't take care of himself.
he either can't take care of himself or he can. If he can't take care of himself, he understands he's not supposed to be back. He needs to go to jail because you've got people out there. And the thing is I'm an advocate for our clients, but it's aggravating, it's difficult, and the system's not designed to deal with these people. They need to be given somewhere to stay and kept there until they are sane enough to be safe on our streets.
So what happened with that? Just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. What happened with that was the ACLU went around the country and sued states for involuntarily holding mentally ill people. That's why they opened the doors and emptied the hospitals, because of an ACLU lawsuit. And their idea was, they're involuntarily holding these people. Let's let them out. You have to let them out. And sure enough, the court said, yep, you got to let them out. You have no reason to keep them. That's what started the Baker Act, where you can only hold them for 72 hours if they're a danger to themselves or other physically, or they can't make enough of a decision to take care of themselves.
We've got one that hangs out at the courthouse. She's an elderly lady that carries a purse. If she thinks you're a lawyer walking in the courthouse, she's going to chase you down with that purse.
Well, here's the rest of it. Now, nothing was perfect.
She's just doing what we all want.
Nothing's ever perfect in a state-run. Nothing's ever done perfectly in a state-run hospital. But I will tell you, those people got medical care.
Yep.
They got dental care. My grandmother worked at the dental clinic. I know they got dental care. I knew the dentist up there. They get medical care. They get a warm, dry, or cool, dry place to sleep. They get fed. That's right. They get medical care, and they got dental care, and they got mental health care. But they couldn't leave. Yeah. If they tried to leave, they would bring them back because they could not function without heavy psychotropic drugs or whatever. They couldn't function in society. And because of a lawsuit, because somebody trying to do good for somebody, they shut down the mental health system in the state. That can be corrected. You can't tell me that can't be corrected by lawmakers.
I think it can. And
wasn't Trump talking about bringing back?
He was talking about it. But he can't do it. You got the legislature.
Can't do it.
The legislature's got to do it.
Yeah, that's not something the president of the executive branch can do. That's something the lawmakers
have to go through due process. They're going to have to adjudicate him mentally ill, and
right. But it can happen.
But it can be done.
And I guarantee you that would make a tremendous difference in our country.
There's no question about it. No question about it. I can't tell you how many cases I've got of weird behavior where there's a mental issue or violent behavior.
Yeah.
Where there's or substance abuse. I was in court yesterday over that.
Yeah.
Guy mentally ill, trying to self-medicate.
Well, a whole bunch of those substance abuse comes from people trying to self-medicate because they know something's wrong with them.
What's going to make a difference, I think, is the video surveillance and the stuff that's being released. And if you look at that little blonde-headed girl getting stabbed and cut to death, and you see
which is awful.
Then that stuff is going to make the news, and it's going to be out there again and again and again. And the more times people don't understand how often this happens on our very streets in our very community.
The people that didn't do anything about that ought to be strong.
I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about fishing.
Me and Paul's finna get in the truck and go fishing. We'll tell you all about that next week.
Yeah, we will.
All right, so next week, fishing stories.